Some years ago, it was around the year of 2000, I became very sick. At that time, I was practicing, so I was a doctor, a physician, helping other people. And I was also racing my bike at the time. I was an expert cyclist, loved cycling, was training for some up-and-coming races. I was literally in the best shape of my life. And all of a sudden, my world crumbled down and fell out. I became chronically fatigued and went from that to food intolerances, brain fog, insomnia, hormone dysregulation, adrenal issues, thyroid issues. I couldn't find out what was wrong. My blood work was normal, yet my world was crumbling. I couldn't adapt to stress anymore. It got to the point where I couldn't work anymore. So I had two young kids at the time, and life was not fun. I ended up having chronic mercury toxicity after I had some amalgams removed. But now, in it, I gained a greater purpose. God gave me a greater purpose in it, because now I teach doctors all around the country what I do. Really, most of which I learned in my own battle, my own journey of getting myself well. Now I do have a greater purpose. I have a passion of teaching what I learned, how I got myself well, and I've been blessed to not only get well myself, but get hundreds, thousands of people well now, because we have duplicated, what I've done across the country with other doctors. So, my pain became absolutely my purpose. I have a mantra that says, if you don't fix the cell, you'll never get well. What does that actually mean? One of the things that I write about is true cellular detox and cellular healing. Ultimately, what we see now is an epidemic, and I think most people listening or watching, we've heard that inflammation is really the cause and driving the majority of degenerative diseases today. Inflammation, heart disease, inflammation, cancer, diabetes. Time magazine said it's the silent killer, and inflammation is the cause. But what does it mean to the average person? But what they're talking about really is inflammation of the cell. And what happens, we have estimated 50 to 70 trillion cells in our body. When these cells become inflamed, and I typically give three big reasons why. Definitely our diets. When we look at our diets, we see things like bad fats. And I know fat has a bad rap in this country. I'm actually a big proponent of fat. Matter of fact, most Americans don't eat enough fat. We're familiar with fish oil, but there's so many other fats that have a bad rap that really we need. So it's a lot of these bad fats, like vegetable oils that are in everything, that drive inflammation of the cell. We also have just raising glucose and insulin, which is a massive epidemic in this country. Just over grain consumption drives inflammation of the cell. But the big one, the hidden one, is toxins. Like no time in the history of man have we ever been really exposed to the level of toxins that we have today. And not just from our outer environment, because arguably that's cleaner than ever, really from our internal environments, things we're putting in our bodies, things we're, whether it's personal care products, silver amalgam fillings, which is one of the things that led to my demise, and so many other hidden toxins, over-vaccination. I mean, we could go on and on with so many ways that we're getting overly toxified, but that's driving a lot of this inflammation. So those are the three main causes. But when the cell becomes inflamed, this is the epidemic that is now causing so many sicknesses, and how it presents itself really is oftentimes determined by our genetic susceptibilities. So I always say your DNA is not your destiny. We used to think that, hey, you would get the disease if your parents had diabetes, you would get it. But really what we know now is that those genes get turned on. The number one thing studies show that turn on those bad genes of susceptibility are toxins. The best part about this is what I educate doctors about and the public is when you fix the cell, you do get well. Part of that fixing the cell is very new science in epigenetics, where we talk about turning off these bad genes. So yes, they can be turned on, so you don't get the disease of your genetic weakness, only if they get turned on. We can turn off these genes, and that's part of cellular healing. So I developed really a roadmap for doctors, and it became something even that the average person resonates to. My 5 R's of cellular healing, really fixing these 5 R's is how you fix a cell. This addresses the epidemic of why so many people are sick today. I mean, look, lately if you've watched the news, you see, the next diet, right? It's this diet, it's that diet, it's this message. I think one of the disturbing things for me, and one of my passions is most of what you hear, especially from regular media, is completely wrong. the message is wrong. The message, at least let's talk about weight loss right now, just because we're hearing so much about it. The message from our government bodies, our protective bodies is, look, eat less, exercise more. Well, that's been proven wrong 1,000 times over. It's not about eating less. It's not about just necessarily eating more fruits and vegetables. Weight loss today is so much more complicated than that. I call it weight loss resistance because there's this growing number of people who, despite what they eat and how much they exercise, still can't lose weight. And the problem is the cell. It's really a hormone problem. You know, the reason why people can't lose weight today is a hormone problem. The reason we see a massive increase in diabetes, obesity, thyroid conditions is it's a hormone problem. But what do I mean by that? Because something that's in vogue, David, right now is everybody taking hormones, even bioidentical hormones. One of the things that I say at every seminar, it's not about taking more hormone. It's about the receptor to the hormone, which is on the cell. You see, so it's a cellular problem. All these hormone issues, the inability to lose weight, the diabetes and the thyroid and the explosion of hormone problems, it's a cellular issue. If you don't fix the cell, you're never going to fix the hormone problems. You're never going to get well. So the concern is our target is wrong. It's not about eating less. It's not about exercising more. Although I agree with exercise. I love exercise, but that's not why we're gaining weight. That's not why we can't lose weight. And it's definitely not about eating less. This is about a hormone problem, cellular disruption. This is the epidemic, and nobody is really talking about it. That's my passion.